This video is going to talk about factoring, but we're going to do some fancy factoring, so to speak. Factoring practice when a does not equal 1. Now, in class, we looked at this form for a quadratic, and we'll see this often, but there's actually the complete form is going to be ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so this is the full standard form. Now, when we are factoring with b and c only, all we have to do is look at what multiplies to make c, what adds up to make b. We don't have to worry about a. However, when we are factoring when a is not 1, we have to think about a. All right, so we're going to do a few examples to try to understand what is going on when a is not 1. All right, now it's not going to change a whole lot, but we do have to think about what that a means and how does that change our expression. All right, so our first example that we're going to do is 5x squared plus 13x plus 6. Now, we used to think, okay, what multiplies to make 6, what adds up to make 13. Now we have to think of 6 and 5, okay? 6 and 5. So we're going to have AC, and that equals 5 times 6, which equals 30. So we want to look at our factor pairs of 30. So our factor pairs of 30 are going to be 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, and then 5 and 6. All right, and now we have to find b, which is going to be 13. So which of these factor pairs adds up to 13? That's going to be 3 and 10. So 3 plus 10 equals 13. Now, the thing that makes this tricky is when we write in two-factored form. 5x and x must go together. So we're going to look. We have 3 and 10. We have to think about what the distribution will be here. All right, so we have this 5. It's going to distribute over here, and that has to make one of our factors. So in this case, 5 has to multiply by something to make either 10 or to make 3. Now, since we know 5 goes into 10 very easily, let's go ahead and go with 10. So 5 times what equals 10? 5 times 2 equals 10. So we have this one taken care of, and now I have to put our 3 right here. Now our sign, since everything is positive, everything is going to be positive down here. All right? So our change here, there's two changes. One, find factor pairs of A times C we ID the pair that adds to B, and then we have to manipulate the pair to work with the A value. Now, this can be very challenging sometimes because our A value can sometimes be both in the first factor and the second factor. All right, so we have to really think about a lot of what multiplies to another number, what adds up to here, what's going to make our lives easiest when we're trying to factor these. So we're going to do a few more, and we're going to bring in some negatives now to hopefully sort of develop more of a mindset of how do I want to manipulate these numbers around? How can I bring these together to make the correct factors? All right, so we're going to do 2 more together, and then I'll have y'all do a couple on your own just to sort of see what's making sense and where we can talk about more in class. All right, so let's go ahead and do 2x squared minus 9x plus 9. All right, so first off, AC equals 2 times 9, which is 18, So our factor pairs of 18, we have 1 and 18. We have 2 and 9, 3 and 6. Now, since we have a negative here, we probably want to think about some negatives too. So you have negative 1 and negative 18, negative 2 and negative 9, negative 3 and negative 6. Now our b value is our middle term still. That's going to be negative 9. So which of these is going to add up to negative 9? It looks like this one right here, this negative 3, negative 6 one looks pretty good to us. Negative 3 plus negative 6 equals negative 9. Okay? So, our factors. We're not just going to start off with x this time. We're going to start off with 2x in one of them and x in the other one. We're looking at negative 3 and negative 6. So 2. Does 2 go in nicely to negative 3? No. Does 2 go in nicely to negative 6? It does. So what we want to do is this outside part, we want to multiply to make negative 6. So I'm going to draw a line there. So this right here is going to make negative 6. This on the inside is going to make negative 3. So then we want to put negative 3 here, because 2 times negative 3 gives us negative 6. And then we have 1, and we want to make negative 3. So this is going to have to be negative 3. Okay? This all comes down to thinking about what does our distribution have to be to add up to that middle number. Okay? We have to do a little bit of thinking ahead, a bit of pre-planning. All right? So it's going to do one more. All right, then I'll have you all do a couple on your own to see how we're doing. Here's 3x squared plus 2x minus 5. Look at AC. So we have 3 times negative 5 or negative 15. Okay? Factors of negative 15. We have a negative 1 and 15. 1 and negative 15. Let's see, what else? 3 and negative 5. And negative 3 and 5. Okay? So, B is going to... B is going to be positive 2. And so let's see, looks like negative 3 and positive 5 is going to be what we want it. So negative 3 plus 5 equals 2. All right, so 3x and x. We'll pull down the negative 3 and the positive 5. Okay, so if we've got a 3 here, it seems like this 3 and the outer one are going to have to do with the negative 3. So this one's going to make negative 3. This one's going to make positive 5. So 3 times what equals negative 3? Negative 1. And then 1 times what equals 5? Positive 5. Okay? So when A is not 1, it does become a bit more complicated, but I think that we might have a better idea of what's going on with it now. Because on the EOC, these may come up, and we will need to be able to at least have an idea of what can we do to try and solve them. Okay? It all comes down to predicting what our distribution is going to do. We'll spend some more time in class, but I want you to do the practice now so I can have an idea of what we understand and what we still have some confusion on.